Hey there, welcome to another segment of Self and Personality. Today, we're going to look at the behaviorist and the humanistic approach to the development of our personality. So, last time we met, it was all about psychoanalysis. It was understanding the psychoanalytic approach to the development of personality. But today, we're going to dive deeper to understand, comprehend how is it that the behavior approach to personality works. Okay, so from last year, do you remember studying about behaviorism? Does Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner ring a bell? I'm sure you learned the principles of operant and classical conditioning last year, and some of this might resonate with you a little bit. So, from the behaviorist theories which you've learned about so far in psychology, you must know that behavior is anything that is observable, it is measurable, and it is something that can truly be defined, right? So that's the proponent of the behavior theory, and behaviorists have to say that personality, like all other aspects and attributes of psychology, is also something which is observable. It can be observed in the way we talk, in the way we interact, in the way we find meaningful relationships. It is something that is measurable. It, of course, can be measured. You could be measured to have an introverted or, like a self-reliant or withdrawn personality, or you could be someone who's very outgoing, sociable, and thrives in social settings. So it's something that can be measured through interesting, psychological tools like the 16 personality factor. Remember, we spoke about it earlier in the chapter. And it's not just observable, measurable, but it is also something that can be defined. So in your everyday, the way you behave, the way you interact, the way you form your relationships, the way you maintain these relationships, the way you express yourself in your everyday interaction is something that is definable. And according to behaviorists, these are the three things that personality can do. Today's lesson will dive deep into the behavior theory as well as the humanistic theory, which is one of my personal favorites to understand the development of personality. Let's go. The behavior approach is an approach which it's not giving so much importance to the internal dynamics of behavior, such as what psychoanalysis did. It focused primarily on the biological and childhood experiences. However, it's focusing so much on the data which exists, which is something that can be outwardly defined, observed, and measured. Okay, so the behaviorist approach is focused more on the stimulus response connection and what is the reinforcements which you derive from that connection. That's what it's focusing on. So, according to the behaviorist approach, the structural unit of personality is a response. Response is anything that you omit from inside of you towards the external circumstance or situation, and it helps you get what you're looking for. It could be a form of goal attainment or something that you're wanting to tend to in your now environment. Okay? Each response is a behavior. So whether if you give a positive behavior or a smirk or if you wink or if you whatever it is that you do with your facial expressions, with your body language, with your with the words that you say, with the relationship that you're maintaining, that is a response, and that response is a behavior which is obviously emitted to satisfy a particular need, some need that you're wanting to satisfy in your external world. Okay, the core tendency that organizes behavior is the reduction of biological and social need. So behaviorists say the reason why you want to do anything which you do is only and only because you want to have some form of satisfaction or reduction in the social or biological needs that you currently have, and that is what energizes you truly. Okay, so you feel energized by that. This is accomplished through responses. Now, what are these responses? These responses are behaviors. These behaviors which are reinforced. All of these theories, which were given by Pavlov, were classical conditioning, instrumental conditioning, which is given by B.F. Skinner, and observational learning, which is given by Bandura, all of these are behavior theorists. All of them say that maintenance of behavior from different angles is what leads to the shaping of personality. Okay, so how you shape your personalities, guys, depends on the kind of classical operant and observational learning that you're being enriched with from your external environment that has an impact on you internally. So before we really head on to the humanistic approach, I would love to discuss the cultural approach with you guys. So what do you think? Do you think culture plays an important role in the development of your personality? If the answer is yes, you're right. Because culture has a huge impact on the development of who you are. Do you agree that all of us are a product of the interactions which we have with the people around us? If your answer is yes, it's true, guys, because all of us, we are fabricated very intricately, very finely into the threads of the culture in which we exist. Okay. Yes, I am Vasudha and I'm Indian and I'm Asian and I live in the south of Delhi. All of these things really define me for who I am because of the people who exist around me with the expectations that they have of me, also with the expectations which I have of myself. So culture plays a very crucial role. It is also the food that we eat. It is to do with the clothes that we're expected to wear. As a girl who's a female who's X age, also, it depends on the kind of celebrations in terms of festivities, traditions, which me and my family celebrate that really shape me, the views that we have, the beliefs that we hold on to, the thoughts that are developed within our, in the intricacies of our own little minds, how we cognitively function. All of that is a product of the larger culture in which we live, right? This also consists of the economic conditions in which I get the opportunity to thrive, whether if there are sufficient opportunities for me to thrive or if there are fewer platforms for me to get up and show what I've truly got, right? So all of these things, including the cultural, climatic factors, the structural resources, the presence of, structural facilities for me to be able to move about freely. What do you think the traffic does to us every time we get out? Does it create a lot of frustration and aggression? So to move out somewhere which is not too far off from our house, if it takes so long to get there, will that have an impact on you and your personality? Maybe yes. So culture, guys, is that, economic maintenance system that exists, the ecological, the environmental, cultural scenarios in which we develop, they play a very vital role in the development of our personalities. So both cultural and behavioral variations, you change the culture and you notice the difference in the individual. I'm sure that last year you guys happened to study a bit about culture and you understood the concept of acculturation and about culture and self, right? So stemming from that, culture plays a big impact. It has a huge may I say, it has a huge, what I'd like to say is that culture shapes our personality. So when it comes to the rituals, the ceremonies, the religious practices, the art which you make, the architecture around you, the recreational activities which are present for you, what your society believes in terms of in terms of the play and the games and whatever it is that's available for you, it largely happens to help you not just develop but also project the personality. Okay? And people, they develop these various personalities. Of course, we have these influencers on Instagram and other social media, which, they have these qualities which we try to attempt to adapt ecologically, culturally, which we tend to imbibe and we, take on for ourselves. So all of this also happens to play a big role in the development and shaping of our personality. What if I was not Indian, Asian, living in India, and somebody who was, let's say, European, living in somewhere in the Alps, somewhere hiking along, somewhere studying along New Zealand, somewhere in Queenstown? What do you think my personality would be like? Very different from what it is right now, right? In terms of the food I eat, the celebration and festivals I get exposure and experience to, all of that. So cultural approach, it truly says that one's personality is the adaptation of whatever individuals and groups, demands that they have of that particular ecology and culture. So that, my friends, is the cultural approach for all of us. Let's move to the last, most interesting approach to understanding personality, which is called as the humanistic approach. Let's go. It's time to look and ponder upon the humanistic approach to the development of personality. So, guys, whom do you think were the humanistic pioneers who proposed the humanistic theory? There's Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. Do you remember anything about Maslow from year 12 of motivation and emotion? The Maslow's needs hierarchy. That's the same Maslow who also contributed to understanding of the development of personality alongside with Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers was a psychologist who proposed the idea of an individual who had maximized his own potential. He very interestingly spoke about individuals who have fulfilled their ability to be who they truly are. And this comes about with the idea of a fully functioning person. A fully functioning person is an individual who has understood their true potential and who seek to maximize it and completely, function very wholly. So let's see what the humanistic approach has to tell us today. So this theory, guys, was developed as a response to Freud's theory, and Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow were the one who were particularly involved with the development of the humanistic approach. So Carl Rogers' theory, which is that of fully functioning, it has some characteristics and features. Please pull out your notebooks and pens and maybe highlight or note down the important keywords here. So the first one is fulfillment, which means that fulfillment itself is something that's a very motivating force. It lets you to get out ahead and really be after your goals. Not just really be after them, but also attain them. And that, my friends, is necessary for personality development. Up next, Rogers gave us these two basic assumptions about human behavior from his observation of human behavior. The first one was that all behavior is always goal-directed and worthwhile. Even if you get up to pick a pencil, or if you get up to maybe go get cheesecake, or if you get up to text a friend, that behavior always has some goal. Okay, so all behavior is goal-directed, and of course it's worthwhile. You feel satisfaction once when you have emitted a particular behavior. Next, People always choose adaptive, self-actualizing behavior. Any behavior that does not give them the desired satisfaction or the desired happiness, they simply don't go after it. Okay, so all behavior is something that is desirable, they're choosing to engage with it, and it is self-actualizing in nature. So that's what Carl Rogers' theory of a fully functioning person suggests. Furthermore, his theory assumes that people, they are engaged in the process of actualizing their true self. All of us, the way we behave, how we behave, and why we behave the way we do, it's largely only and only because we are wanting to actualize our true self. So, have you wondered about what this true self is all about? All of us, we have a self. We also have a true self. So the self is what is entangled within the society. It is the self that we know ourselves to really be, right? But on the contrary, there is also a true self, which is probably a little, which can stem through our self-awareness, through the knowledge of understanding and knowing oneself. I'll ask you guys to pause here to think about your true self. Not the self which is contaminated by the social world, not the self that, your friends or your relatives, your peers, your social agents know you to be, but essentially the you, which is the US you, when nobody's watching. Can you please take a moment to think about this and maybe list characteristics or features of this true version of yourself? Maybe 3 will just be enough. Do that and we'll get back. Was that good to know? This is exactly what Rogers also spoke about. Rogers spoke about the concept of a real self and an ideal self. Okay, so a real self is a self which we know ourselves to be, which is the self in the now. It is the self, which is a nice, it's a nice amalgamation of the external and the internal world, with the shaping from the environment that we exist in, from the preferences, choices that we're surrounded by our interactions, by our social relationships, by the social agents we engage with. That is the real self, the self which we're aware of in the now. However, we also have an ideal self. Ideal self, guys, is the self that we aspire to be. It is the self that, excites us and we want to move in the direction of the self, which is more to do with our own becoming, which is our evolution, which is what excites us and thrives us to want to be part of something more. Okay? That ideal self could be an inspiration from social media. It could be an inspiration from within. It could be an inspiration from the movie you watched recently, or a friend whose characteristics are quite interesting and you'd like to own them. So Rogers' concept of a fully functioning person suggests that the closer your real self is to the ideal self, there is more congruency and harmony inside of you, and you feel a sense of fulfillment. You feel a sense of being fully functioning. On the contrary, the further away the ideal self is from the real self, the more incongruency and unhappiness, lack of harmony you feel within you. Isn't that interesting to know? So, how close do you think as an individual you are to your real self? Or your real, cut. How close do you think is the harmony that you feel towards your ideal self? Please do think and let me know in the comments below. Let's look at the theory now. The theory here suggests, again, exactly as I just explained to you, that Rogers had the idea of the concept of the ideal self. Ideal self is that self which the person would like to be. When there is correspondence, which means that there is harmony, there is congruency between the real self and the ideal self, the person is generally very happy. However, whenever there is a discrepancy between the real self and the ideal self, that is what results in unhappiness and a lot of dissatisfaction. So like I explained to you, this is the figure of a well-adjusted person, wherein the ideal self is so nicely blended and merged with the real self. Okay, so there is congruency, harmony, peace, and happiness. On the contrary, here there is incongruency because the ideal self is further away from the real self. This is where the individual feels very poorly adjusted and unhappy and not very worthwhile. So this was the notion of the real self and ideal self as suggested by Carl Rogers, guys. So according to Carl Rogers, individual is someone who is recognizing the various roles and social, relationships or influences that they have to experience and follow. At the same time, how they get developed in the process of engaging with the social world. So mastering, oneself through evaluation of one's behaviors, evaluation of one's development, and, also regulating one's behaviors and then applying them to the real world is something that helps you in the development of self-concept. That is what Freud suggested. Now, Carl Rogers said that there are some individuals who are very high on self-concept and self-esteem. They are the ones who are very flexible. They're very open to new experiences. They continue to grow and self-actualize because these individuals are very aware of what is it that they're wanting from their social world, or what is it that can help them become more. And the knowing of getting to, be more is actually what's helping their whole idea of self-concept. So they have very good esteem, they have a good sense of value-worth, and they continually learn to grow and develop, which is more important, and that's what Rogers here is suggesting us. This situation wherein there is growth and there is congruence between the real self and the ideal self is what develops this whole atmosphere of unconditioned positive regard. All of this, it warrants unconditioned positive regard. So what is this unconditioned positive regard? It is basically the acceptance of this individual no matter regardless of their current scenario. Client-centered therapy, which was introduced by Rogers, it believed in unconditioned positive regard, which meant absolute acceptance of the individual, regardless of the conditions which they were experiencing at a moment in time. So this basically, it helps the individual to fully accept themselves the way they are, despite whatever they're feeling at a moment in time. And eventually this does help with raising one's idea of self, which is the self-concept, self-esteem, and overall general sense of value and worthiness. Okay, so with that, we come to an end to Roger's client-centered therapy, guys. We're going to move on. We're going to move up ahead to Abraham Maslow's theory of self-actualization. So Maslow is this one guy who gave a more detailed account of psychologically healthy people. What he did was he studied a lot of individuals who had actualized their fullest potential and they'd already become their best selves in a moment in time. So actualization is something which is not something which you've attained at last and stays forever. It is something that through analyzing, it's something that could be achieved over and over as only a moment in time. Okay, so actualization is basically the realization of your wholeness and your truest complete potential, which can help you to even eventually enhance your life. If you look here very closely, what you'll notice is that you'll see the hierarchy of needs, which you might have done last year as well. It has got the physiological needs in the end, which incorporates things like breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, your bodily homeostasis and excretion. So that is the physiological. Then there are some safety needs, which is the safety of having like a secure body, which is healthy, of having a family, of having morality, of basically just having shelter, which is a house, good health and some property. Right? Then of course all of us have love and belonging. All of us love to feel belonged. So all of those friendships and family and sexual intimacy is the feelings of love and belongingness. Then of course we have the esteem needs. Esteem needs are just your needs of wanting to be valued, of being confident, of having achievement, of respect for others, respect by others, and having a sense of worthiness in you. Those are your esteem needs. Last off, of course, we have self-actualization. Self-actualization, to understand this better, is basically motivation to reach your fullest potential. Okay, so as it's shown out here in Maslow's hierarchy, it's basically attainment of the sense of morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. Okay, it's basically reaching that fullest potential of yourself wherein you feel the most wholesome. But what's important to note is that it's not that once you've attained this feeling, it stays and lingers on and lasts forever. It's something that changes over a period of time, and it can be achieved again and again. That, my friends, was Maslow's hierarchy for you. And with that, we come to the end of the humanistic approach, as well as the behavior and cultural approaches to understanding personality. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed understanding these approaches to understandings of personality. My personal favorite is the humanistic approach because it's always rooting for helping us become more. It's always helping us to kind of correspond and have congruency between our ideal self, real self, check on the real self, see how far it's from the ideal self, and have more harmony, move closer towards it. So I love that whole, wholesome feeling of becoming more and more actualized in my everyday, of reaching out to my maximum potential and becoming it and thriving on it and then becoming some more. So that's a wrap to all of the approaches. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I did. Please raise questions if you've got any, and I assure you I'll get back to them. Thank you for your time and focus. That's a wrap. Bye.